Today we're driving the 2023 Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat Premium. This thing costs, as tested, $106,420. Dodge claimed they were only going to make this for 1 year only in 2021, and it's back. They're making some more. They've raised the price a little bit. This starts around $93,000 now, up from $80,000 what the 2021 cost. And yeah, this thing's pretty wild. I've been driving it all week. Let's walk you around it. We'll talk about it, and we'll take it for a rip. So, 6.2 liter Hemi V8, supercharged, 710 horsepower, 645 pound-feet of torque. It's all-wheel drive. All that's connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. This thing, we just had this out on track at Road America a few weeks ago, and the Durango is one of the best handling SUVs. Even though it's a full-size SUV that can tow 8,700 pounds, it just drives incredibly well. It's very, very well sorted. The chassis is amazing. The power is insane. The supercharger whine is intoxicating. It does all the things. It's hugely spacious. You can put all your friends in here, make them sick, go crazy on track, or you can daily drive it, use it as a tow vehicle, use it as a family vehicle. It just does it all, and it does it without any regard for social norms, which I think is just the best. Hugely spacious. I transported a set of quick jacks back here earlier this week, the big ones. You've got some more space underneath here. Third row has a usable amount of room. Look at that. Fit adults back there, no problem. And we'll leave these up for a little bit. Why not? Test it out. Here's your button to close the tailgate. Listen to that exhaust. Premium package gives you a lot of features. Nice leather on the seats, adaptive cruise control, forged carbon interior bits. It's a steep price, but it makes this a little bit nicer of a vehicle to live with. These seats fold all the way flat. That's nice. How do we get in the back? Probably a little bit easier on the passenger side. We've got a center console here with lots of room, kind of mimicking what we've got up front. Cup holders, rear climate vents, climate controls, knobs. No rear infotainment like we had in the last Durango Hellcat that we tested. But it's a spacious and functional interior. Super easy to get in and out of. Got these headrests that fold down, and you can see that third row. Very easy to get back into. Let's just do that real quick. It's not what this thing is about, but I mean, you know, the Durango has been out for so long, and it's still just one of the best 3-row vehicles. Look at that. Awesome entry into the third row space. And this all just kind of resumes its previous position. Look at that. I even have a ton of headroom back here. If I were to buy a full-size SUV, I'd be heavily considering a Durango SRT or even a tow and go package. This Hellcat, a little bit out of my price range, and it is a lot of money. But the performance, it doesn't get any more insane than this. Or more fun to drive, I think, too. This is probably the most fun SUV I've ever driven. Let's pop the hood, take a look at this 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi. There it is, there's the heart. Rated for 12 miles to the gallon in the city, 17 on the highway. You'll average about 10. Sounds amazing, does all the right things, and really, this is a very well-proven engine. Good cooling capacity. This thing works on track. And just look at it. There's so many vents. I like the stripes. I think it adds a bit of special flavor to this Hellcat. A lot of these Durangos kind of look the same until you look at the front end, maybe see some bigger brakes, but they're a little bit incognito. They're kind of sleepers, unless if you see the Hellcat badges on the side. We've got a 19 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. That's part of the premium package. Decent leather on the steering wheel. Love the chunky feel of this. Good paddles. Kind of an outdated interior at this point. This thing's been out for so long. They've made little upgrades and changes, adjustments to the gauge cluster. One of the slowest responding screens in the business right here. You really gotta wait. For a vehicle that does everything else so quickly, this just feels ancient. And they've kind of updated the infotainment a little bit, but it's based on the latest software, but this is still about as sluggish as it gets. Look at the response time here. Just dismal. Yeah, it gets the job done though. At least you have physical controls for climate. Got some quick access buttons for like the SRT pages and stuff. And you have a ton of drive mode customization. You can go in here, custom setup, toggle everything to your heart's content. We'll mess around with that a little bit today. The rest of this is just good old Durango. All right, let's take it for a drive. Doesn't even have a 360 cam. Just an old low-res reverse camera. If you're hoping for good tech, a nice fancy modern new interior, this Durango Hellcat's not going to deliver it for $100 grand. But for behind the wheel, the driving experience, listening to this thing, all that just kind of vanishes, and you begin to appreciate why this is just the ultimate performance SUV. Just cruising around in this thing, you can feel its wide stance, its super aggressive tires, the track-tuned suspension, everything just subtly hints that this has a lot of performance underneath. I like that the supercharger whines at low revs. In street mode, this just kind of idles along. Tons of torque. Rides pretty nice too. The exhaust is pretty loud. If you have the whole family in here, they might start to complain out back, but hopefully you've got a family of enthusiasts if you're rocking one of these, so it sounds fantastic in my opinion. The exhaust tuning here is just awesome. It's so crazy to be driving something this loud and this aggressive that has 3 rows. You look behind you and you just see a ton of space. This colossal amount of room in this Durango. Incredible brakes. And you can just see how well balanced this car is. For some reason we're on kilometers per hour here. How did that happen? There we go. That's better. I was like, that's way too big of a number. On the highway, comfy, just cruising this. This Durango suffers from the best type of multiple personality disorder. It's a pretty nice daily, and then you get into it, and it's just a menace. It's absolutely insane. The amount of power on tap under your right foot, you gotta be careful. You gotta watch out. Got to keep checking that rear view mirror. I love the responsiveness of this drivetrain. Dodge just did the best job calibrating this car. Let's play with the pedals a little bit. So that downshift. Wild, just wild. Sits at about 2,200 RPM on the highway. You've got 2 cruise control series of buttons here, one for adaptive and one for just traditional cruise control, which I think is kind of clever. You get used to it and it's actually pretty useful. A lot of following distance settings. No head-up display or anything like that. It's all pretty old school in here. Really the only big letdown with this Durango is some of the interior materials aren't really up to par for $100,000, and this infotainment's just way too slow. What does track mode feel like in the Trans? It really sharpens up shifts. Tack, I can't even keep up. I thought digital tachometers were designed so they could really keep up with the revs of the modern fast shifting transmissions. It's not the case here with the Durango SRT Hellcat. I like the short gearing here. You can just rip through 3 or 4 gears. Yeah, you're probably speeding a little bit, but it doesn't have super tall gearing. You can enjoy the sound of the 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi. How well composed the suspension is. Most SUVs would just be bouncing around at this point, and this is just unflappable. Amazing, just amazing. You've got to stay on top of your shifts, because if you hit that rev limiter, there's a pretty big delay into the next gear, so you have to just shift just a little bit before $6,000. This Durango Hellcat, like all Hellcat products, is that friend that's a bad influence on you, always egging you on, always encouraging you to do things that you probably shouldn't be doing. All that personality, all that just insane, menacing charm in a package that does everything. I considered buying a Durango SRT for a little bit as just a one-car solution. And maybe I will someday, who knows. But they're just so much fun. At this point, I kind of have some trouble justifying the $100,000 price tag on something like this, just because the Durango's been out for so long. You can get used examples of the SRT that is almost as fun as this Hellcat. Yes, it doesn't have the supercharger, but is adding a supercharger really worth the extra money? I don't know. I don't know if it is. It does add some performance. It does add an extra level of insanity. Eco mode's nice. Just kind of idles along. This is also one of those vehicles where you go out for a drive, you go out for a little rip, a cruise, and you've burned half a tank of gas, and it has a 24-gallon fuel tank. Let's listen to this 19-speaker Harman Kardon sound system. See what that's like. We got volume controls behind the steering wheel. Sound system sounds pretty good. One interesting note is if you want to quickly mute your audio, you have to be sure to press the mute button in these Dodge products, not the volume power button, because that'll just turn off the infotainment screen. Which is kind of nice to have that quick access to turn that off very easily, but at the same time, you have to know what you're doing. It's also interesting having paddle shifters and volume and track selection controls behind the steering wheel. There's a whole lot going on back there, but I've always found it to be pretty straightforward, not that confusing. Paddle shifters are just kind of short little pieces, about this long, and yeah, they have a nice feel to them. Snappy, and then the transmission's so responsive in this. It's just a joy to drive. Well, we've got to do launch control, so let's just knock that out. It's going to be uphill. Spinning all four wheels. We gotta do one more launch. That was insane. Brakes. Sunroof's coming. Closing. Sunroof cover. Wow. Alright, so what are the takeaways with the Durango SRT Hellcat? I'm sure some owners and people who bought the 2021 Durango Hellcats are pretty disappointed that Dodge came out with this again. They thought they were getting a one-year-only production exclusive product. They probably paid a lot of money for over MSRP, but in my opinion, it's probably a good thing for everyone if Dodge makes more of these, because it's just a fantastic SUV. At the end of the day, the big surprise here is just how refined and how well sorted this car is dynamically. It's incredible what this thing can do. The suspension tuning, the powertrain, it all just comes together to provide maybe the best performance SUV driving experience I've experienced. I haven't driven some of the Lamborghini products, the new Ferrari, but I don't know. This has a character and an enjoyment factor that is just so lovable. I know it's expensive, but nothing is this fun to drive that has 7 seats. It's ridiculous. It can tow, it can haul your family. Yeah, the interior is not that nice and the infotainment kind of sucks, but it's just one of the best driving experiences I've been in behind the wheel of a 7-seater. It's just, even the X7 doesn't hold a candle to the driving enjoyment factor here. I mean, this thing just does things that it shouldn't, and it is more capable than you can imagine on a racetrack. The fact that it just works day in, day out, heat manages well, it really just does it all. Dodge outdid themselves on the tuning of this Durango, and for some reason these have always driven better than the Trackhawk, for example. They're just a bit more refined, a bit better sorted. The suspension, the handling, the chassis is just, it's better to drive. It feels more accurate and precise. And, you know, don't sleep on the Trackhawk, but yeah, this feels just like a much more refined and better developed product, even though it is ancient. It's been around forever. But they just keep refining, keep improving, keep making it better. And yeah, this is really, really impressive to drive. So I think if you want this experience slightly diluted, you can't go wrong with a Durango SRT or even a tow and go. I mean, that's kind of got all the track bits, the brakes, the exhaust, but for a lot less money. And of course, you can find some used options out there. But if you want the ultimate, you got to go for a Hellcat. So stuff like this probably won't be around for much longer, so I guess get it while you can. But man, what an SUV. We'll leave it at that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the drive. Figured we'd just cruise around in this thing a little bit today. We also have a nearly identical review of this from a couple years ago. Not much has changed. It's pretty much the same exact vehicle, but it's always fun to revisit it. And it was cool driving this on track at like 7/8 at Road America a little while ago. We've spent some other, we've driven this on track, some other opportunities too in the past, and it's just so impressive what it can do. But as a street vehicle, it checks a lot of the boxes for someone who wants something that's just a little bit crazy. Yeah, I love it. All right, that'll be it for this one. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Oh, and it comes with a red key too. If I got one of these, I'd want to turn it into just a complete sleeper. Maybe debadge, take off some of the Hellcat badges. No stripes. Get it in like gray. Only giveaway would be the red calipers and the 3-second 0 to 60 time.